Good afternoon. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Climate and Infrastructure Committee for April 10th, 2025. I'm Katie Cashman, chair of this committee. Before we begin, I want to offer a friendly reminder to all committee members, staff, and public that these meetings are broadcast live to enable greater public participation. These broadcasts include real-time captioning as a further method to increase accessibility to the community. Therefore, speakers need to be mindful of the rate of their speech so that the captioners can fully capture and transcribe all comments for the broadcast. Thank you. This time, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Vita.
Present.
Osman is absent. Chavez.
Present.
Chowdhury is absent. Vice Chair Koski.
Present.
Chair Cashman.
Present.
There are 4 members present.
Let the record reflect we have a quorum. I'm aware that we'll also have a tornado drill in about 15 minutes, so do not be alarmed when that happens. Not a drill, it'll just be the sirens. Okay, so we will start with our consent agenda, items 3 through 11. Item 3 is project designation and setting a public hearing for the 2025 Concrete Pavement Rehabilitation Program. Item 4 is concurring with the city engineer's variance request from MnDOT for the reconstruction of Cedar Lake Road over the BNSF Railroad. Item 5 is requesting the Minnesota Commissioner of Transportation to make additions and removals to the municipal state aid system within the city of Minneapolis. Item 6 is authorizing a pipeline license agreement with BNSF Railway Company on 22nd Avenue North between 2nd Street and West River Road. Item 7, expressing the city's support for MnDOT's University Avenue and 4th Street Southeast reconstruction project. Item 8 is authorizing construction of a regional stormwater treatment system at the Upper Harbor Terminal. Item 9 is accepting a grant from the International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives for geothermal planning. Item 10 is setting a public hearing for May 8th to consider an ordinance related to amending the outdoor stadium noise. Item 11, receiving and filing the 20-year Streets Funding Plan 2025 update. Are there any items from the consent agenda 3 through 11 that the committee members would like to pull for a separate discussion? Councilmember Chavez.
I'd like to pull out item number 5 for questions. I don't need to a separate vote, but I just have questions on it.
Sure. Any other items? So I will move approval of the consent agenda except item number 5. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Those items are approved. So on item number 5, which is the request to the Minnesota Commissioner of Transportation to make additions and removals to the municipal state aid system within the city of Minneapolis, I'll recognize Councilmember Chavez for your question.
Thank you, Chair Cashman. If staff could help me answer, I just have a few questions about this item. Can you help us understand the process of how this works?
Director Sexton.
Yeah, Chair Cashman, I guess I'd be looking to our staff and most likely Jenny Hager to maybe respond to that.
Great.
Thanks.
Welcome, Ms. Hager. Councilmember Chavez? Oh, your question was what these revisions entail and what that process looks like.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Cashman, Councilmember Chavez. My name is Jennifer Hager. I'm the Director of Transportation Planning and Programming for Public Works. Our municipal state aid system of streets that we collect gas tax dollars to help support. We can allocate up to 20% of our street network to the state aid system. So in Minneapolis, we have about 200 miles that we can allocate to the system. And system revisions are an annual process where we can review our system and request changes. Changes might be based on changes to the network overall and taking a look at how funding is allocated for the system and right-sizing and maximizing the funding that we can collect as a result of that.
The process would be the city requests, and then the commissioner would decide.
Madam Chair, Councilmember Chavez, so we put our suggestions together. We get feedback from the state aid office on those changes and whether what we're looking for meets the requirements of the state aid system or not, which includes interconnectivity of the system. And then once we have concurrence from state aid, then we get a council resolution and then we are authorized to make those system changes.
And today, that is that council resolution. Or
Madam
we're
Chair,
requesting.
Councilmember Chavez, that is correct.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Seeing no other discussion on this item, I'll move this for approval. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? That motion carries. Next up, we'll take the public hearings. The first public hearing, item 1, is regarding the Stormwater Management Program, the 2024 annual report. We will be continuing this item to May 8th so that staff can present at that time. However, if you are here today, the public hearing is now open. So with the public hearing open, we do not have anyone signed up to speak, but if you are here to speak in this item, you could come forward at this time. Seeing no one here for that public hearing at this time, I'll move to continue this to May 8th. Any questions or discussion from committee members? Seeing none on the motion to continue to May 8th, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? The motion carries. The next public hearing, number 2, is project approval and adopting assessments for the new Nicollet Avenue construction. Here to kick off the public hearing is Adam Hayo from Transportation Engineering and Design.
Good afternoon, Chair Cashman, members of the committee. My name is Adam Hayo. I'm a principal professional engineer with the Transportation Engineering and Design Division of Public Works. Today, I'm here presenting for the public hearing for the Nicollet Avenue and Cecil Newman Lane construction project, city project number 10046. The proposed project will construct and reconnect Nicollet Avenue from Lake Street to Cecil Newman Lane, including reconstructing the existing bridge over the Midtown Greenway. Also reconstruct Cecil Newman Lane from Nicollet Avenue to First Avenue South. Elements to be included as part of today's proposed project includes full removal of the existing roadway, new pedestrian ramps, sidewalks, bike facility on Cecil Newman Lane, new pavement, new curb and gutter, green infrastructure, new signal and street lighting, and utility improvements. The project will also include new signage and new pavement markings. The total project cost is $26 million. The total street construction assessment is $425,318.37. This is based on the 2025 uniform assessment rates and the influence area method. The rates are $2.98 for non-residential and $1 for residential. These assessments are payable over a 20-year period. The rest of the city funding sources are value capture funds, stormwater funds, and HECRA funds. City staff has conducted numerous outreach activities throughout the planning and design of the project. A virtual pre-assessment meeting to provide the overview of the project, discuss plan improvements, and answer any questions related to the assessment method and process was held on April 1st. Today, Public Works is asking City Council to pass resolutions ordering the work to proceed, adopting the special assessments, authorizing sale of assessment bonds, and authorizing abandonment and removal of areaways in conflict with the project. That concludes my presentation, and I'll stand by for questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hayo. I do have a couple of questions about the special assessments in the amount of $425,318, as well as requesting from the Board of Estimate and Taxation to authorize the city to issue the sale of assessment bonds in the same amount. So can you explain a little bit more about how that reimbursement process works? Welcome, Mr. Handelin.
Thank you, Chair Cashman, members of the committee. My name is Jeff Handelan. I'm a principal professional engineer in the Transportation Engineering Design Division of Public Works. So for the questions about the reimbursement. So for special assessments funding, we work with Finance and Property Services Division of the city. My understanding is that they sell bonds. We coordinate with them so they know our assessment amounts. Then they sell bonds because we have to fund the construction now. We can't wait 20 years for the assessments to be paid. And then the property owners pay their assessments through Hennepin County property taxes, and that goes from there to the city.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And one more question while you're up here. How many properties are impacted, or how many properties are being assessed?
Chair Cashman, we've got about, off the top of my head, 10 parcels. I think it might 10, 11, or 12
Okay.
parcels. I can get that exact number if that would help.
The estimate is okay. Thank you. So I'm going to proceed to open the public hearing and see if we have anyone signed up to speak on this item. Looks like we do not. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in the public hearing? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and ask if there are any questions from the committee members. Seeing none, I'll move this item for approval. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? That motion carries. Thank you. So we will now take up the discussion items. So first is receiving and filing a response to a legislative directive about alley funding and repair. Here to present on this item is Katie White from Transportation Planning and Programming. And I'll also recognize that we've been joined by our guest, Councilmember Palmisano, who I believe was a co-author on this legislative directive. So welcome, Ms. White.
Good afternoon, Chair Cashman and members of the committee. My name is Katie White, and I am a senior transportation planner in the Public Works Division called Transportation Planning and Programming. I am presenting the department's response to this legislative directive about alleys. This presentation represents a collaborative effort with team members from Transportation Maintenance and Repair and Surface Water and Sewers, which are the divisions that execute repair work to the alley system. Those staff are here today to support questions from the committee. I also want to credit Transportation Maintenance and Repair for providing most of the pictures, which represent former and current alley conditions across the city. The legislative directive text is attached in LIMS, in the LIMS file, and presented on this slide. These are the topics I'll be covering in the presentation today. There are 3,576 alleys across Minneapolis, totaling 377.4 miles. These alleys primarily serve adjacent property owner access, waste management, and stormwater conveyance purposes. Most are 12 feet wide and made of concrete panels. Most alleys were constructed over 70 years ago with the expectation of providing a 60-year lifespan. Typically, each year, the city has been reconstructing one alley per year, which costs around $500,000 if it's a simple design. In order to reconstruct the entire alley system, Public Works would need over $1.7 billion. Since the alleys are fairly uniform, the problems on the alleys are pretty consistent throughout the system. Most alleys have exceeded their useful life. Cracking and heaving of the concrete panels is common. Asphalt overlays have been used to correct some conditions, but are not an effective tool for all the issues on the alleys. Currently, the combined total of funds available for this work is $470,000, which I'll talk about a little later on. Sometimes an alley condition exists because of stormwater drainage concerns. There are about 460 storm drains in the alleys, representing about 13% of the alley system having a storm drain. These storm drains were primarily made from clay tile in the 1930s and 1940s and are in deteriorating condition. Each drain replacement costs approximately $300,000. I got this slide ahead, I apologize. Public Works directs all complaints about alley conditions to 311. This includes complaints coming from private operators, residents, council members, and staff. We'll talk a little bit more about 311 at the end of the presentation, but it's important to know that the repository of alley needs exists entirely based on 311 data. After a complaint is received, Transportation Maintenance and Repair and Surface Water and Sewers will evaluate the cause of the issue and make a repair decision. There are a wide variety of treatments that may be used to repair an alley, ranging from sweeping, patching, asphalt overlay, stormwater repair, or in some cases, a full reconstruction. Funding is allocated based on available resources, prioritization data, and equity considerations. However, given funding constraints, the department may not be able to address each request at the scale needed. Public Works directs all, I think I'm off a slide again. Yeah. Sorry about that. So let's talk about those treatments and the available funds for them. Televising is the primary method that Surface Water and Sewer uses to gather a condition assessment of the data required to keep our asset management program maintained. Over 50% of the storm and sanitary systems have been televised already, including 46% of alley drains. Televising costs about $5,000 per alley, and $1,475,000 is available annually for these activities. As I said earlier, each alley drain replacement costs about $300,000, and with $1 million available each year in the capital program called SWALY, the division is able to complete 2 or 3 such replacements annually. Surface Water and Sewer relies on the Center for Disease Control's Social Vulnerability Index when prioritizing projects with an equity lens. When we think about the pavement condition of the alley system, ride quality is less of a priority. The pictures here show one alley with heaving and one with a rough surface, but both are considered to be in good condition for the purposes of how an alley should function. Actually, that top photo, I thought it was my alley because it looks like my alley. I would say most alleys in the city look like the top one there. Usually, though, when we think about an alley and experiencing concerns or issues, grade and elevation are actually the biggest challenges in resolving alley issues, not heaving and not surface condition. Grade data like that is labor-intensive and difficult to collect. Beginning in 2026, Public Works will pilot the reallocation of existing resources to collect this data for future prioritization among alleys in need of repair or reconstruction. As stated earlier, each alley reconstruction costs about $500,000, and each year the capital programs PV006 and PV063 provide a combined $470,000 toward alley repair, rehabilitation, and/or reconstruction. And the Division Transportation Maintenance and Repair uses the Transportation Equity Priority Scores, the TEP scores, when prioritizing projects. There are about 75 alleys that remain unpaved in Minneapolis. While each is different, common issues with unpaved alleys are garages or driveways disrupting the grade or elevation, insufficient grade or elevation change along the length of an alley, private structures built in the alley space, dead ends, neighborhood sentiment, constructability concerns, lack of assessment interest or ability, and more. Some of the unpaved alleys are difficult to build, with the potential to damage nearby structures due to the difficulty of building new infrastructure in constrained spaces. Unpaved alleys are much more expensive to build compared to reconstructing existing alleys. In a recent investigation, one unpaved alley had stormwater costs alone estimated at $2.8 million, and that's before paving, grading, and surface costs for a new alley. Public Works has engaged a multidisciplinary team since 2024 to change the process of compiling and summarizing 311 complaint data. New categories have been added to 311 to route complaints to Public Works subject matter experts appropriately. This data is collected and updated each week. This routing will better illustrate the needs on the system and provide information back to the original 311 caller. However, if an alley is determined to need more than a resurfacing, it may be marked as unable to resolve as the needs exceed current available resources. I worked with the clerk to add another slide, but I didn't get added. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take questions from the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. White, for the presentation. I will call on Vice Chair Koski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just was wondering if you could just clarify. Thank you so much for the presentation. It's a bit daunting to think that the entire budget is about the same budget of a yearly city budget. But I'm just curious to know, what is the total amount? Is it about $2.4 million that's allocated to this? If I'm just trying to, each year, if I'm trying to figure out per slide here.
Sure. Which slide are you referencing specifically?
So I'm looking at slide, I believe, the data-driven management strategy for storm sewer.
Sure.
It says 1.475 million there, and then another 1 million. So is that about what's allocated for alleys, is about 2.5 million?
Chair Cashman, members of the committee, thank you for that question. The 1.4 million in televising is just televising, not actual repair.
Okay.
And so it's closer to the $1 million than 2.4.
Okay, so it's 1 million for repairs.
Correct.
So I just want to make sure I keep them separate. So, but if we're just thinking about, so replacement and repairs is 1 million. Okay, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
All right, I will just recognize that we've been joined by Councilmember Osmond and Councilmember Chowdhury in this meeting. And next I'll recognize Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for having this discussion at your committee today. And thank you for this presentation. You know, I think this gives us really important context to speak with residents all over our city about their alleyways. I've learned a lot about televising pipes and what that is like over the past several years, and I realize what a useful tool it can be, albeit it's not inexpensive. 75 unpaid alleys. I knew enough that when someone called my office saying they lived on the only one, that they weren't the only one, but I didn't realize they were in 75 alleys worth of company there. We have a lot of needs to balance in our city for costs. I love how in one of my area's floodplain projects, and I know there are dozens of floodplain projects going on around the city, that your department is looking into alley improvements. Really, the storm drain underneath the alley is one way to keep water flowing, and that is where some of the repair work might be in a couple of places, is as part of those projects too. But I really appreciate all of the information in this today, and I think that as we look to balance costs and budgets across our city, I'm hoping that we can give this some more deserved attention in the future. So thanks.
Chair Cashman, if I may, to your point, one of the things I've learned in creating this presentation and doing the research today is that sometimes when there's a flood condition in an alley, televising teaches us that the issue is actually located elsewhere. It's just the symptom is being expressed in the alley. And so that's one of the good, useful tools that televising gives us when we investigate these issues.
And if I may, isn't one of the potential treatments then to actually be able to, there's something that would allow water to go down the flood drain, but then actually not come back up in those instances that you mentioned, so that it's not kind of cropping up into the alley and flooding, but there's like a valve on it, so to speak?
Sure. Chair Cashman and members of the committee, I would defer to Will Shute from Surface Water and Sewer, as I am not a stormwater engineer.
I didn't mean to get into a discussion of this. I just think that in general, there are treatments within the existing pipe that you can use to manage some of these flood conditions. What I meant from the floodplain efforts or planning going on in one of my areas, it's really that it's just, water is going to flow where it can, and if they could keep it down there, they could actually get it to flow into a more productive space and not just sit for weeks.
Mr. Shute, would you like to address this question?
Good afternoon, Chairman and Councilmember Palmisano. Yes, what you're referring to is a backflow preventer. We put those on certain situations to prevent the water from backing up the system. It is a tool. It's not necessarily always a perfect tool, but it is something that we do look at when providing flood relief for alleys.
Well, thank you so much for the presentation, Ms. White. I'm not seeing any other questions before us, so I will ask the clerk to receive and file this report today. Thank you so much. Before we proceed, I did want to ask if Councilmember Chowdhury and Councilmember Osmond would like to be marked as an aye vote on the consent agenda and our first two public hearing items.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Great. Thank you, Clerk Kendall. So next up, we have a presentation on neighborhood traffic calming from Ben Brosser from Traffic and Parking Services. Welcome, Mr. Klugman.
Chair Cashman, members of the committee, good afternoon. I'll be joining Ben. I am Alan Klugman. I'm the Director of the Traffic and Parking Services Division of Public Works. I'll allow Ben to introduce himself, and then we'll sort of tag team the presentation here.
Good afternoon, Chair Cashman and committee. I'm Ben Brasser, Principal Professional Engineer with Traffic and Parking Services and Public Works.
Welcome.
So, of course, we're here today to talk about neighborhood streets. These are the streets we use every day to walk to the park, to take a stroll with our family, maybe to enjoy recreation right outside our front door. And these streets are so important to us, and we're so concerned with safety and livability in our neighborhoods. And of course, for many years, speeding has been an issue in the city. But what I want to say is that for several years, Public Works has done a lot of work to try to address that speeding, try to ameliorate the condition. One of the big things we did about a half a dozen years ago, in 2019, we were the lead city testifying at the legislature in an attempt to give cities the right to set speed limits on the roads under our authority. Prior to that time, all roads were under single jurisdiction, and our streets, our residential streets, carried a mandatory 30-mile-per-hour speed limit for an urban district throughout the state. We had no ability to change that speed limit. Due to the lobbying effort at the legislature in 2019 and passage of the bill, cities throughout the state can now set their own speed limits. As you know, in 2020, we then underwent a very detailed study to determine the right speeds for our streets, and we applied those streets. We came up with a so-called two-tier system, 20 miles per hour in the residential streets, 25 on the collectors and arterials. And I kind of always smile when I take a look at this picture. In the summer of 2020, we put out over 1,400 signs to enact the new speed limit program. And if you recall, that was the height of the pandemic. Even outside, we had to wear a mask, and we had a little celebration when we put up the first of our so-called gateway signs. So we put a lot of attention to the physical network, trying to indicate what the speed should be, both through the legal signing, and then also, of course, we've done a lot of public outreach and engagement, of ongoing PR campaign. We want to notify people of what the speeds are, but even more so, we want to build a culture of safety in the city. We want to keep those speeds down. It's very important to us. But of course, as you know, not everybody understands that 20 is plenty, and we continue to have issues with speeding in the neighborhood. And that's why about 3 years ago, in 2022, we initiated the Neighborhood Traffic Calming Program with a series of small-scale, neighborhood-level interventions, the idea that they can deter speeding, push down those speeds, and try to make our neighborhoods more safe and more livable. Ben will talk about these sorts of treatments and a few others. He'll also more directly answer the questions that were raised in the legislative directive, and then I'll wrap up with some views on what we look to for the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. So as Alan mentioned, we're happy to be here this afternoon to provide a response to a legislative directive passed by Council in December. The legislative directive contained 3 parts, which we'll cover in the 3 topics of the next 3 topics of the presentation. First, we'll give a general update on the status of the Neighborhood Traffic Calming Program, including a breakdown of the requests we've received and the projects we've completed or are preparing to complete. Second, we'll give an overview of programs throughout Public Works which address traffic calming or traffic safety. And third, we'll look to some potential expansions and changes to the Neighborhood Traffic Calming Program to meet the demand for this type of work in new ways from what we've done so far in this generation of the program. So to start off with an update on the current status of the program, I know members of the committee are familiar with the overall idea, but just as a refresher, the Neighborhood Traffic Calming Program receives requests from the public on an annual basis to construct traffic calming treatments on neighborhood streets. Requests can be submitted through an online form. They're then scored by our team, and high-scoring requests are ultimately selected for construction. It's important to remember the various criteria that determine whether a specific request is eligible to be included in the program. First off, in its current form, the neighborhood traffic calming program only takes requests on a certain subset of streets in the city. The location must be on a city-owned street, and Public Works decided during the development of this program to include requests, or not to include, requests on high injury streets or municipal state aid streets. We also don't address areas that are actively under construction or are planned to undergo a construction project in the near future. Once a request is submitted, it's subject to a scoring evaluation, which includes a transportation score and a community score. And when it comes to eligibility, there's a minimum transportation score threshold that a request has to meet in order to, for us to consider it eligible for construction. The current generation of the program will enter its third season of construction this year. To break down the requests we've received and been able to construct over those 3 years, or planning to this year, in the first year of the program, we received about 750 requests, of which 590 were eligible for construction, and our budget that year allowed us to include about 40 requests in a project area. In the second year of the program, we received an additional 270 requests, 120 of which met the criteria to be eligible, and last summer, we constructed projects which addressed about 50 requests. Leading into our current cycle, we had a pretty strong surge of engagement and interest last year, which resulted in over 800 new applications, 380 of which met all eligibility criteria. And this year, we plan to be able to construct enough treatments to address about 120 of those requests. So that brings us to some exciting and timely news that we're moving ahead with our proposed project areas for this year's construction. This year, we plan to construct 49 projects. Again, a project is a localized stretch of a couple of blocks receiving some traffic calming treatments. 49 projects for construction this year spread across all 13 wards. We've selected the locations of these 49 projects based on the requests we've received and are moving forward into the engagement phase for this year's work. Next, we'll be soliciting feedback on these projects from residents to inform what particular traffic calming treatments will be constructed and where specifically within those project areas they'll be placed. Again, for projects in process for this year, these applications were due last fall, with the scoring and evaluating taking place earlier this year. I have this week listed as this is the week where we are now. And however, we've been having communications and notifications and posting information about the project selections have been going on for the past couple weeks. We're now in our community engagement phase, which consists of several open houses over the next few weeks, as well as the chance to provide input using our online tools through May. Following the community engagement and input, projects will begin to be constructed this summer and likely continue into the fall. Then looking ahead already to next year, the deadline to submit a request to be included in the 2026 construction season will be August 1st of this year. And just to remind you of the types of treatments in our toolbox that we're talking about when it comes to this year's projects, we expect the projects will consist primarily of the top two treatments you see shown here, neighborhood traffic calming circles and speed humps. We also supplement some of the project areas with bollard treatments and have the ability to construct medians as traffic calming measures as well. Now to the second section of our topics today, we'd like to give an overview of other programs and opportunities in the city which address traffic calming and safety. If we want to answer the question of, what are all the projects and programs that Public Works delivers which address traffic calming, it's helpful to take a step back and just identify some of the elements and goals which come to mind and come to define traffic calming. Effective traffic calming comes with the construction of some sort of physical measure, which can be self-enforcing. For example, a physical measure which has a traffic calming effect doesn't have to be exactly the treatments I just showed a couple slides ago, like a speed hump or a traffic circle, but it can be a different type of physical element, like a curb extension or bump out, a median in the middle of the street at an intersection, or simply narrowing the street and lanes, all of which encourage slower, safer vehicle speeds. A desired outcome of traffic calming is, of course, slower vehicle speeds, and sometimes the reduction in the number of vehicles on a particular route or making a particular movement. These elements and outcomes have the desired effect, especially in the context of our neighborhood traffic calming program on low-volume neighborhood streets, of improving neighborhood and community livability. And we, of course, get a proven safety benefit for any of these treatments, which also result in slower vehicle speeds. Now, some of these elements that I'm talking about, curb extensions, medians, narrowed lanes, things like that, might sound kind of common and widespread, especially in Minneapolis. But that's because these design features, which encourage those slower, safer vehicle speeds, which calm traffic, are incorporated into so much of what we deliver in public works transportation projects and programs. And there are plenty of examples. One program which always comes to mind is our Vision Zero program, which has built low-cost, quick-build safety treatments, think bollard, bump outs, and medians, along our network of high-injury streets. This program is also closely tied with our planned upcoming ability to leverage the federal Safe Streets for All grant, which will be able to implement more permanent versions of these kinds of safety treatments, again, along our network of high-injury streets. Another opportunity where the city leverages federal funding to implement safety treatments is our use of Highway Safety Improvement Program, or HSIP funding, to make improvements at signalized intersections. These projects not only upgrade signal infrastructure to the newest, safest designs, but also construct safety improvements such as curb extensions and medians at these intersections. The Safe Routes to School program implements safety improvements, including some of the same treatments as the Neighborhood Traffic Calming program along neighborhood routes near one or more schools. This aims to create safe and comfortable routes for kids and families who walk or bike to school or to get around their neighborhood. Recent projects you might be familiar with in that program would be maybe the City View Safe Routes to School project or the Green Central Safe Routes to School project. Also, while it more specifically targets protected bikeway implementation, our All Ages and Abilities Bikeway Implementation Program also includes elements such as medians, raised bikeway curbs, and narrowed street widths, which support calmer, safer traffic. Recent examples of those would be the Hennepin-Dunwoody Bikeway or the 2nd Street Bikeway projects. The Pedestrian Safety Program, which largely focuses on pedestrian safety treatments at intersection crossings, also has elements of traffic calming because pedestrian safety elements like maybe a median crossing island also encourage those slower, safer vehicle speeds at all those locations. A major category of products that we have to mention is our street reconstruction projects. Think big projects like Grand Avenue, 4th Street downtown, Dowling Avenue, Bryant Avenue, and of course Hennepin Avenue going on right now. Resulting from our city's baseline approach to how we design streets, these projects come with many of the features we've been talking about over and over: the narrow lanes, the medians, the curb extensions, the protected bikeways, some raised crosswalks, which all have the benefit of encouraging those slower, safer vehicle speeds. All in all, the city dedicates considerable investments in these programs that contain these traffic safety and traffic calming elements, all within our broader capital improvement program. The Neighborhood Traffic Calming Program is one area where we focus on the neighborhood livability aspect of traffic calming rather than targeting these higher volume, higher crash locations like in many of these other instances. One other program to mention is the upcoming traffic safety camera pilot, which hopes to address traffic speeds more from the enforcement side rather than from the physical infrastructure side. So now we've kind of reviewed the status of the program and considered it in the context of the other traffic calming and safety work we do. We'd like to look ahead at some potential updates and opportunities for the future. Over the recent years of the program, and certainly as the interest in traffic calming has grown throughout the city, we're finding that we still field a certain type of traffic calming request that doesn't quite fit the program as it was originally designed. Many council members might be familiar with this type of request, but it typically involves being located on a municipal state aid street, but not on the network of high-injury streets, and also not within the area of an upcoming project like a street reconstruction, Safe Routes to School, or HSIP traffic project like we were just talking about. But there's still a desire communicated from residents for traffic calming or traffic safety improvements. These are still streets where people live, cross the street to walk to the park or the store. They're still part of people's neighborhoods, even if they aren't included in the network of neighborhood streets where we've been focusing our program. Based on all these factors, and based on our understanding of council feedback around the time of the budget season last year, we're looking to use the program to expand the reach of traffic calming and traffic safety elements to this type of street, these expanded neighborhood streets. To accomplish this, we're planning to pilot this year a system to implement some traffic safety treatments to this category of streets. We plan to use a portion of the budget allocated to traffic calming treatments in 2025 to install allowable treatments on MSA streets, which meet the design requirements of those streets. You may recall from before that MSA streets require essentially a different set of design standards than the typical neighborhood streets where we install traffic calming. So not every tool in our toolbox would be eligible at these locations. We would, however, be able to install medians, which still come with traffic calming and pedestrian safety benefits that we want to see. For the purpose of piloting the design, construction, and implementation of this type of treatment, we plan to select locations where we have existing requests and feedback received by Public Works, aided by the same data metrics we use for our typical scoring process. And considering the potential to bring treatments to these expanded neighborhood streets into the future, we plan to deliver these treatments alongside our neighborhood traffic calming program and within the same pool of funding. We plan to group projects along corridors for these streets because traffic safety and traffic calming on these routes is likely to be more effective when implemented that way rather than an isolated intersection or a block here and there. We want to be intentional about how we prioritize the treatments on these streets, as the higher traffic locations mean that these treatments will have a higher crash reduction and safety benefit potential as well. That's why we plan to proactively develop a prioritization list of corridors that can inform projects to be implemented into these future years. This prioritization will be based on similar transportation and equity criteria as we use on our current process for neighborhood streets, in alignment with the Transportation Action Plan, the Racial Equity Framework for Transportation, and the 20-year Streets Funding Plan as we do today. And now I'll turn it back to Alan to take a look ahead a little bit more into the future.
Thank you, Ben. Chair Cashman, members of the committee. As Ben kind of indicated to us, we have 2 years under our belt with construction. We're proceeding right now with year 3. We'll be starting that pretty soon. And we're starting to think forward to what does 2026 and beyond look like. And much as Ben spoke about some changes we're making with sort of some of our programmatic ideas and some of the roads we can handle, we also are proposing a change in how we fund this to make sure this program is sustainable. Historically, for the last 3 years, this program has resided within our operational budget. But when you think about this program, even though each installation is a fairly small dollar, relatively speaking, for Public Works, when we group these all together, this really has the feel of a capital program. And in fact, all the other safety treatments that Ben talked about in the other programs, those are within our capital budget. So accordingly, with this year for the 2026 budget cycle, as we just recently, a couple weeks ago, submitted our recommendations to the CLIC program, we have moved this from our operations budget into our capital budget, a new line item, and we're proposing $500,000 towards these treatments. And as we look at the full suite of programs that the city has going citywide, the programs Ben referred to, we feel we're addressing multiple needs within the city with this multifaceted approach. We're very happy to blend this program into that ongoing capital program, and we're very excited to continue this program in the future in a sustainable way. We also feel that with a program like this in the capital side, it gives us a little more certainty in our planning. We can take a little bit more of a long-range view. Now, don't worry, we're not moving away from the application-based system from the residents, but as Ben talked about with some of the other corridors, we can also do some more corridor planning, some more area planning. We feel it'll give us an efficiency for construction and a little better system of how we can plan into the future. So again, as we look at the full suite of programs that the city has going into the future for a safety basis, we're super excited for neighborhood calming. We know it has a strong facet of the citywide safety approach. We're very excited for this program to continue on to the future. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Alan. Thank you, Ben, for the presentation. You guys just made my day and week with your presentation today because, the council has been so invested in this program. Tripling the investment that we made in it this year in the budget, really just on the feedback from our residents. And I myself get dozens and dozens of requests from traffic calming into my inbox. It's just something that people really want to see in their neighborhoods. And want to be part of choosing what that looks like, which is why we so support the application form that we do have. I did want to ask a couple of questions. So the first one, in the beginning of the presentation, you said that there were 120 requests that were made this year that will be included in a project, but you said there will be 49 projects. So can you explain that math?
Absolutely, Chair Cashman. So, when we talk about a project area, again, a project area sometimes usually is a stretch of a couple blocks in a row, and may also include maybe more than one treatment. So there might be a pair of speed humps on one block, and then a couple of blocks down the road, there might be a neighborhood traffic calming circle, for example.
I see.
Similarly, if within that couple block stretch, maybe multiple residents submitted a request for to the traffic calming program, that's how we might say, there might be more requests, multiple requests included in a project. So that's why the number of requests that can be addressed is higher than the number of actual project areas.
Okay, thank you. And then you did mention that you're now starting to do traffic calming on MSA streets, which is music to my ears as someone who lives on on MSA Road, Groveland, which is super, super fast and dangerous. What can we expect on the MSA roads? I saw medians and crosswalks. Are those some of the new additions?
Correct. So, correct, Chair Cashman. So that's a treatment that, as I kind of mentioned a little bit, is there's limitations to the types of sort of just like speed reduction and design elements that can go in on those MSA streets. And so those medians are something that, again, we feel kind of fits the right blend between something that does have a traffic calming and traffic safety benefit, but is still eligible to be constructed on those streets. So it's kind of finding a mix between the way the program has been implemented and developed over the past few years, and expanding it into a kind of a different sort of parallel opportunity.
Great. And then last question is about the upcoming open house that you're having, where you're kind of unveiling the first round of selected projects for the year. That's not the entire list of projects, though, is it?
Correct, Chair Cashman. So there are 6 open houses coming up, generally in sort of different geographic areas around the city. Each open house is intended to kind of focus on a subset of the traffic calming projects that are located nearby. Now, a resident is welcome to speak with our staff at an open house about anything, any project in the city or traffic calming generally. But that's, yeah, so each open house sort of is going to be set up to address sort of a more localized subset of those projects.
I see. So the first one being April 14th in Whittier.
Correct.
That will address all of the traffic calming projects that are within that area.
Sure.
Or, the open houses are distributed geographically, and the projects close to that location will be discussed?
Yes, absolutely. So the ones that are closest in location to where the open houses are going to be located are the ones that are going to be highlighted at each of those open houses. It's, again, there's certainly some overlap, and it's kind of draw the line somewhere between which ones were highlighted at which open house. So that's why residents are welcome to come to any of them and say, give feedback to to the effect of any of the other projects throughout the city. There's also online feedback tools like submitting points of feedback on our project location maps, as well as filling out a survey online. So if the open house isn't the perfect forum or the perfect time and location for that, there are those other opportunities for the community to provide feedback to those projects as well.
Thank you. Do you have the full schedule of open houses listed on the website here?
The full schedule of open houses is listed on the
Traffic
the
calming
city's
website.
traffic calming webpage, yes.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have. Next, I'll recognize Councilmember Vita.
Thank you, Chair Cashman. I just wanted to say thanks to both of you for this really good presentation. Of course, traffic calming is an issue around the city, and this gives me a lot of answers to questions that I've had. And also, just to add, Mr. Klugman, I'm disappointed that you didn't do a video on this. I mean, come on.
Please do.
Yeah, this is just slides, Alan. I was expecting, one of your really cool videos. I learned so much better for those. Get to it, Alan. Thank you.
Next, I'll recognize Councilmember Osman.
Thank you so much, and thank you for finding a ways to make our neighborhood streets safe. I'm looking at here, and thank you for that great email that really specifically focuses each council member's area. Before I get to this, there are some streets that have a safety issue where, there might be like a missing stop sign or high traffic injury and so on. And the challenges I have, and I continue to highlight in Ward 6, is that residents are not really familiar with completing the form when it comes to, fixed here, or, accidents are not being reported. But I get those updates within my office, so I'd like to find a way to highlight those main streets that are having some of the issues. And also, now specifically, I'm glad this area that right here, I know it's specific at 21st Street East between 11th Avenue and Bloomington. The issue, this is really hard issue, but the issue is 10th Street it's the one with the highest injuries or accidents. Last night I was at Ventura Village neighborhood meeting, and they were asking me specifically this question. So I know this area is being covered, but it starts 11th. The project you have selected starts 11th. Is there a way to really add one block, which is like 10th Street? That's the main one that's missing a stop sign, and people are flying, and neighbors are complaining. I know it's a specific question, and if you want to take that later on, I'm happy to do that too. Thank you.
No, Chair Cashman, Councilmember Osmond, I'll say just generally, I mean, that's the type of comment. That type of comment is exactly why the engagement phase is kind of going in before before the construction happens, right? So that exact type of comment, one more block or one more slight adjustments kind of to it, right? Is exactly the type of conversation that we're entering into, and we'll be able to inform what ultimately gets built this year. Also, just thought mention certain things like maintenance of stop signs and things like that are a little bit outside of just the specific treatments that are going to be constructed with the program, but that all that feedback and everything like that as part of this engagement process is something that's going to be really helpful to us to make sure that we're able to address a maintenance issue if there happens to be one out there.
Okay, thank you.
Next, I'll recognize Councilmember Chavez.
Thank you, Chair Cashman, and thank you for this presentation. I'm really excited for these projects to happen across the city of Minneapolis. I'm looking at the slide number 10, and I kind of want to get a picture made for the public to understand how this works. My understanding is that if you submit an application in 1 year, it's eligible for that year and the following year if they're not selected, correct? So if I'm looking at this, it looks like when I first started, there was 750 applications. The second year, technically, if you consider the new ones plus the ones that are eligible, maybe 1,020 applications. Or I guess what I would like to see is the breakdown of how many applications were considered in year 1, year 2, and year 3, because it looks like there has been an increase every single year, and I think it's showing that this program is pretty popular within our constituents because it's something that our residents, contact our office on a daily basis about how we can improve it. So I kind of just want to get the more official breakdown of how many eligible projects have occurred in every single year, I guess. So,
Chair Cashman, Councilmember Chavez, absolutely. When it comes to all the different detailed ways to break it down, and did it carry over, did it not carry over? There's tons and tons of ways to break it down, and so for the numbers included here to keep it high level is what was kind of shown on the slide there, and what we spoke to. We'd be happy to dive into the breakdown with you in some more detail.
Yeah, sweet. A follow-up would be great. And yeah, just thank you and Public Works for this presentation, and we're super excited about the projects.
Thank you. So Clerk Kendall, could you mark down a follow-up on, a different way of breaking it down that would identify how it's been cumulatively increasing over the years? Great. Next, I'll recognize Councilmember Chowdhury.
Thank you so much, Chair Cashman. I didn't know, Mr. Klugman, was there something more you wanted to add to that point? Just wanted to offer the opportunity because I'm very curious as well.
Thank you, Chair Cashman, Councilmember Chowdhury. I'm maybe going back a minute or two, but I was thinking of something. Councilmember Osmond, if I take some of what you were saying, it sounds like there's some, possibly difficulty or impedance with some of your constituents in filling out the forms, reaching out to us, and maybe make 2 comments about that. For the things that aren't pure neighborhood traffic calming, like maybe a missing stop sign or something that's broken or something, certainly 311. And if residents need any help working with 311, we're happy to work with you and your team. But maybe even more importantly, as we look towards the 2026 year, applications for neighborhood traffic calming will be due on August 1. And if anything that we as Public Works can do in terms of outreach, working with your staff, working with maybe communities that have been a little bit tougher to reach in the past, we want this to be for the entire city. We want everyone to have equal opportunity to have access to this program. So let's work with you in terms of how we can get those applications in. I just wanted to note that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Great. Councilmember Chowdhury.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation. This was really, really helpful. I know that in my ward and just in general, like regionally, we're constantly talking about reducing crashes, leading to fatalities, injuries, and traffic calming and opportunities for these like quick builds or traffic circles are things that neighbors are constantly talking about. And I'm really pleased to be looking forward to a municipal state aid road traffic calming project or program. I know my office has had the opportunity to talk to you and Public Works pretty extensively. We've also like had an opportunity to bring in our state rep and just try to understand like just like kind of the barriers at the state level, kind of what we're thinking about here at the local level. And I think we're just making really good progress in thinking about MSA roads, because I think we're at a point when we're looking at the data around crashes and fatalities, we see that we're working towards addressing the ones that are like city designated, and then there's like a gap with municipal state aid roads, and then there's a gap with county roads, which just says we need to find ways to lean in more to figure out how do we interjurisdictionally address these concerns. And I think this is just an example of City of Minneapolis Public Works leaning in to figure out how we work to find a solution for the municipal state aid roads, instead of saying, okay, we have this barrier and we're pointing the other way. And I think constituents are going to be very pleased to see this kind of program available. I did have a couple questions related to the municipal state aid pilot. The first being, are we going to see a similar application process? And then how many projects are we thinking of piloting? Do we have a rough estimate or an idea?
Chair Cashman, Councilmember Chowdhury. For the pilot, to answer your most recent question first, for the pilot, we probably have the funding to address about the neighborhood of 10 locations in this year. So, and again, when we're talking about corridors, it's maybe then a fewer number of corridors than maybe those 10 specific intersection locations. And for that portion, our plan is not to rely necessarily on the same application process that are on like the neighborhood streets where we typically follow it. Locations where we know about feedback of issues, that we're already aware of. There are kind of parallel to our actual like request process where you submit the online application for the program as it is today. Also has the opportunity to submit feedback, on maybe a street that might not be eligible, but is, so we've got lots of sources to kind of bring in like just known information about what's the desire and for those treatments out there. But then as far as sort of the plan for how that program might be delivered into future years, it's a smaller, a smaller total mileage of streets, right, than every block of every neighborhood, north, south, east, west, blanketing the whole city. So that's why we kind of are planning to do more of a proactive prioritization for those streets, rather than relying strictly on like an application scoring based process. And again, that also then allows us to target the areas that have not only the transportation characteristics that we think are going to have the best transportation safety benefit, but also make sure that we're prioritizing those streets equitably and not maybe missing something just because an application didn't come in from a resident who might not have, or a neighborhood that might not have been quite as plugged in as maybe another neighborhood. So that's kind of how we see that program living into the future.
That's great. I know that a lot of people in the last 3 years have applied for the neighborhood traffic calming, but then were ineligible because they were applying for MSA streets. Are you going to be looking back on those applications and data?
Yeah, Chair Cashman and Councilmember Chowdhury, that's absolutely one of the sources of data that's readily available to us to go back and kind of figure that out for what's in front of us now and how to kind of help prioritize that in the future.
And just from your vantage point and as public works staff, what's the best way for residents kind of to bring forward an area that's been very, very high speed. They might have found out just through realizing that their street is ineligible because it's MSA. What's the best way for them to kind of bring that forward to Public Works? Is it just staying consistent on 311 complaints? Is there other ways of reaching out?
Yeah, Chair Cashman and Councilmember Chowdhury, those ways certainly exist, and those are great ways to get information to us. Like I said, there is kind of a parallel ability to submit something on a MSA street or a high injury street, sort of alongside the neighborhood traffic calming like request, online. And I think that's something that we will plan to kind of develop and supplement and grow a little bit to it alongside the ability to construct some of these treatments on MSA streets is making sure there's a good, strong way for feedback to be given and received on those as well.
Awesome. And just for my clarification, you might have addressed this earlier. The pilot won't be for this fall, or will it be, or is it looking into next year?
Chair Cashman and Councilmember Chowdhury, our plan is to try to pilot the implementation and construction of some of those this year.
That's excellent. That's great news. Makes me super excited. Just the last thing I'll say is just really appreciate all of your effort and being responsive to council members like me who've reached out about MSA streets over time. This is just really, really great progress. I'm really excited to share this out to residents who have asked about it for a really long time, and just thank you for pulling together the presentation and responding to the legislative directive. This was really great.
Councilmember Vice Chair Koski.
Thank you, Chair Cashman. Thank you so much for this presentation. I know we've all been anticipating this for a long time. I just want to thank you. I see that the 2nd Avenue, I believe, is on there as a Ward 11 road for support. And maybe some of you know, maybe don't, but an amazing young girl named Penny was killed on the street. And Alan came with me, actually, and drove around the area with other staff to view the street, and we took a ton of time. All of you did. And so I just can't thank you enough for adding this to this program, and I can't wait to tell these neighbors and I can't wait to tell their family that we're taking action on this. And I know that that's something that this entire neighborhood will be so grateful for, to honor Penny and the first responders that came to her aid. As well, I'm just really grateful to be able to tell them too that what the city's doing to support this community. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Vice Chair Koski. Chair Cashman.
Last question I have here is, last question that I have is whether some of the temporary installments that you did last year will be made more permanent in this process?
Chair Cashman, that's a good question and something we've been diving into this year already. One of the treatments that's actually included on the list of those 49 projects is not in Ward 7, but it is a different temporary bollard traffic circle that has been on the street for several years now, and so that's one of those that's going to be included and going to be upgraded to a more permanent installation.
Do you know the street name, just so I can check it out?
That is the Delaware Street Southeast and St. Mary's Avenue Southeast intersection. And so if I'm correct in understanding the location you're referring to, that was constructed last year with a temporary looking bollard traffic circle. That's the same type of treatment that we're upgrading in a different location this year that's been out there for a number of years, and something that we're trying to figure out if that how to bring those types of upgrades into this program.
Okay, thank you. I'll go and take a look at, follow the progress of that one to see what we might be able to expect in the future. So, seeing no other discussion before us, I thank you both so much for the presentation, and I'll direct the clerk to file that report. Our last item today is receiving and filing an overview of special assessments and opportunities for providing assistance to low-income property owners. Here to present on this item is Ashley Zook from Policy and Research.
Good afternoon, Chair Cashman and committee members. My name is Ashley Zook. I'm with the City Auditor's Policy and Research Division, and I'm here to present on assistance programs for special assessments. On February 6th, this committee directed Policy and Research to complete an overview of special assessments and assistance programs in Minneapolis, a landscape analysis of other cities' special assessment assistance programs, as well as a review of the constraints and opportunities for providing assistance in Minneapolis. I will start with an overview of Minneapolis special assessments. Special assessments generally fit into two categories, though this is not a perfect categorization. I'm putting them in these buckets for the purpose of this presentation. The first are levied assessments, meaning the city or park board imposes a special assessment on a property owner. The second are property owner financed, meaning property owners choose to use special assessments to finance necessary infrastructure work on their private property. This includes necessary tree removals, sewer lateral, water service line, and retaining wall repairs and replacements. Levied special assessments are one of the primary tools used by municipal governments to offset the cost of qualifying improvement projects. This type of special assessment is a fee collected by the city for improvements or services that the city provides which benefit residents' private property. These include capital improvements related to a service, unpaid bill, or unpaid fine, street lighting and street maintenance assessments on non-governmental tax-exempt property, special service districts which address unique items in a given geographic area, and park board assessments. It should be noted that reconstruction special assessments rates are based on 25% of the standard project costs. Special assessment payments. Assessments can be prepaid in full by November 15th of the year before the assessment begins. While this is the largest upfront cost, it results in no interest accrual. Repayment terms differ depending on the project, but the term should never exceed the life of the asset. Minnesota law states assessment payments cannot exceed 30-year terms, while Minneapolis code states payments cannot exceed 20 years. You can see on the slide a number of different project categories, repayment terms. 2025 interest rates for street resurfacing and reconstruction projects range from 3.9% to 4.7%, depending on the repayment term. To give you an idea of the scope of special assessments in Minneapolis, I've included a number of data points on this slide, though there's much greater detail available in the report. Just to pull a couple out, capital improvements, including sidewalks, for example, were just under $8.9 million, affecting roughly 3,579 properties. Sewer lateral repairs or replacements, which is in the owner financing category, was more than $1.1 million for 74 properties. Special assessments are generally considered fair in theory, as they make property owners pay for infrastructure improvements that benefit them specifically. However, their enactment and ultimate outcomes can be inequitable in practice. For example, in 2019 in St. Cloud, one resident in a $100,000 house paid $6,300 for a road project, while their neighbor, after suing the city in district court, paid only $4,000 despite living in a $330,000 house. This may indicate that only homeowners who have the time and resources to spend appealing the assessment and filing a lawsuit will successfully reduce their special assessment, the special assessments levied on their property. Additionally, although Minnesota law prohibits levied assessments from exceeding the increased value the project provides to the property, many cities, including Minneapolis, do not evaluate market value while levying assessments. Instead, we use the influence area assessment method, which has been determined to be a fair approximation of market value increase. While some view any special assessments not taking property value into account as potentially having equity concerns, adding property value as a determinant factor could add different equity concerns, as studies have shown that lower value homes are overassessed more frequently than higher value homes, and higher value homes are more often underassessed. If property value is taken into consideration when determining special assessments, we should do it carefully to ensure we're not adding additional inequities. Moving into current special assessment assistance programs for Minneapolis property owners. The option to pay special assessments back over a given number of years, whether levied or owner financed, is essentially the city providing a loan to property owners. Special assessment deferrals are also available for certain populations, including property owners who are over 65 and older, or are unable to work due to permanent disability, or are ordered into active military duty. However, interest accrues until the special assessment is paid. Beyond these types of common assessment loans and deferment, additional assistance programs for property owner financed special assessments are explored in the next slides. You will notice that there's no discussion around assistance programs for city-leveled special assessments, as none could be identified in my research. So loans and grants from the listed programs and agencies may be more favorable for property owners than financing projects through special assessments. Minnesota Housing, for example, works with a statewide network of lenders to provide home improvement loans. The programs often have different criteria, but all include some form of income eligibility requirements. It is really important to note that loans are not available for already assessed projects. So if the city has assessed a project, it would not be eligible. But if a property owner is proactively addressing an issue, then tree removal, sewer lateral, water service line, and retaining wall repairs projects would likely be eligible. Minneapolis's Community Planning and Economic Department has an owner-occupied rehab program, which provides assistance to eligible residents for numerous projects. If eligible, residents can receive assistance in the form of grants or deferred or forgivable loans for retaining wall, sewer lateral, and water line repair and replacements, as well as necessary tree removals. These financing options are provided through a collaboration of federal and state sources, including Minnesota Housing. Also, like CPED, the Center for Energy Environment is an improved lender for Minnesota Housing. They also manage numerous other funding sources, including from the City of Minneapolis's Neighborhood Revitalization Program, which funds neighborhood-specific grant and loan opportunities. I also have Rebuilding Together and NeighborWorks Home Partners on the slide. Those are two local nonprofits, which also provide some funding for these types of projects for qualifying homeowners. The listed programs for tree removal on this slide can help property owners pay for necessary tree removals. The Minneapolis Parks and Recreation Board provides 3 financing options, including a deferral for specific populations, which is the same as the city, as well as repayment terms of 10 or 20 years. The Minneapolis's Condemned Tree Assistance Program is a partnership between the city's health department and the Park and Recreation Board, and is funded by the U.S. Department of Agriculture with a focus on low-income property owners. For approved applicants, the program covers 100% of the cost to remove the trees and stump and plant 1 or more replacement trees on the property. Local nonprofit there, another example, Metro Blooms, also helps with tree removals. However, due to their limited funds, they are targeting outreach to residents living in environmental justice communities. In general, like private tree removal, city funds cannot be used to pay for private sewer lateral or water service line repair. However, there is some funding available to residents specifically for these purposes through the listed Met Council and state and federal grants. Met Council's Private Property Inflow and Infiltration Grant Program is managed by the city's Surface Water and Sewers Division of Public Works. They received $250,000 for 2025 and have been able to award 34 grants out of 172 applications. Applicants are awarded in amounts of up to $5,000, $7,500, or $10,000, depending on the property's geographic location. While property owners can still utilize special assessments for water service line repair or replacement, the need for them to do so has been significantly decreased, if not eliminated altogether, due to the availability of federal and state lead service line replacement grant funding. $342 million in federal and $240 million in state funds have been allocated to ensure the state meets its goal of replacing all lead service lines by 2033. And as of March 19th of this year, Minneapolis has completed 328 reimbursement-eligible lead service line replacements across the city, with a prioritization emphasis on disadvantaged communities, leaking and emergency lead service replacements, and in conjunction with other street reconstruction projects. Much more detail for both of these programs can be found in the report on pages 22 through 29. Next, I'm going to quickly go over some example cities' assistance programs. A number of cities, including those listed on the slide, have variations of a subsidy or grant assistance program for certain types of special assessments, primarily capital improvement assessments. All of them have an income eligibility component. I've included a chart of St. Cloud, Minnesota's income limit on the top right of the slide, showing the income limits for households of various sizes. Oh, I didn't look up how to say this out loud. Wahpeton, North Dakota, has 3 tiers of assistance based on income. A household making 60% of the area median income would receive a 50% abatement on special assessments, 40% AMI would receive a 75% abatement, and 30% AMI receives a 100% abatement. Again, many more details for all of these programs are available in the report. As a few cities listed here also have additional loan or deferral options beyond the same ones offered by Minneapolis. Details vary and can be found in the report. And I am going to move into constraints and opportunities for assistance programs in Minneapolis. Like most of the example cities, Minneapolis could create a similar subsidy program focusing on levied capital improvement projects. Drawing from the examples, eligibility requirements might include some combination of the following. 1, the only special assessment that would qualify for the program would be capital improvement assessments. 2, special assessment must have an initial balance that is greater than 500 or some other threshold. The property must be owner-occupied. The property owner must have a qualifying household income. Assistance is not available to projects in new developments, and property owners must be current on all property taxes and special assessments. Program income eligibility could look like the following, again, based on example cities. Minneapolis could require that income be at or below 80% of the area median income. This would match income limits for numerous other Minneapolis programs. The chart on the top right once again shows St. Cloud, Minnesota's income requirements. Within these limits, a property owner qualifies for a % reduction based on the difference between their income and the income limits. So if the income limit is $50,000 and a person makes $40,000, they would qualify for a 20% reduction of their special assessment. I've again included the chart of Wahpeton, North Dakota, their sliding scale of assistance. Minneapolis could use the 80% AMI income limits for eligibility and then some version of a sliding scale to determine how much assistance is provided. Some additional subsidy program considerations include that, one, creating any type of new program would require at least one new full-time equivalent staff position. The more complicated a program is, it would potentially require more than one additional FTE. Income verification for an income-eligible program can require a significant amount of staff time depending on the complexity of the program requirements. Numerous programs around the city already individually verify income eligibility. There does not appear to be a central, citywide verification system. Whether or not an income-based special assessment assistance program is developed, creating such a unified system may be worth investigating further. This would not only decrease the staff time necessary to verify income for these individual programs, it would also streamline the process for residents, as they would only need to, in theory, apply or provide proof of income once annually for all city programs that they may be eligible for. Additionally, since the city does not currently have data on the number of properties which would qualify for a subsidy program, it is nearly impossible to accurately estimate the cost and impact of a subsidy program for both residents and the city. The city attorney's office indicated that the law would require any special assessment assistance program to have universally applicable criteria, which would require the city to be able to guarantee enough funding to cover the same expenses for everyone who qualifies. Exploring potential funding sources for these subsidies would require additional research, and gathering additional data on the impact of special assessments and a potential subsidy program could help us plan the scope of any sort of program as well. Moving on to some increasing repayment options. Increasing repayment options is another potential way to assist property owners with the cost of special assessments. As previously discussed, Minneapolis offers payment deferment options for certain property owners. However, very few people who currently qualify for deferment choose that option due to the ongoing interest accrual. The city could consider expanding deferral eligibility to include those facing general economic hardship. However, Minnesota statute dictates who is eligible for deferrals, so adding additional categories of eligible people would require a state statutory law change. The city could also consider changing city code, which states payments cannot exceed 20 years. Term limits could be increased up to 30 years and still be within state law. However, the repayment term should still not exceed the life of the asset. Therefore, this may be most beneficial for property owners looking to finance very expensive projects on their private properties, especially retaining walls. That is extremely rare, but as retaining walls continue to age, that will become a more common issue. Both expanding the deferral eligibility as well as increasing repayment term limits will likely provide minimal assistance for special assessments without also adjusting loan interest accrual. Changes to interest accrual could include the following: stopping interest accrual after the term of assessment, or inversely, charging 0% interest during the first part of the repayment term. Any of these options would need to be further explored with the city attorney's office and other applicable city departments, including Public Works and Finance and Property Services. Assistance for property owner financing related assessments, again, meaning tree removals, sewer lateral, water service line, and retaining wall repair and replacements, is limited. Using city funds to pay for infrastructure needs on private property does not pass the public purpose test. In order to provide assistance for these types of projects, the city charter would need to be amended, or the state legislature would need to enact a statute that provides Minneapolis with the authority to implement an assistance program. However, the city could work to improve communication around outside financing opportunities for low-income residents. When property owners contact the city to opt into property owner-financed special assessments, they could be informed that if they're eligible, CPED's owner-occupied rehab program or other programs such as those through the Center for Energy and Environment may be able to provide more advantageous financing options. almost to the end. I know this is really dense this time around. So additional considerations for special assessment assistance include the following. There's also an option in theory of capping assessments. Capping assessments on certain properties would essentially distribute the cost burden of that property to all taxpayers. Any cap on the maximum cost of a special assessment would need to be applied equally to a defined property type, for example, residential properties. There's also something called circuit breaker funding. In this scenario, the property owner would pay the first X amount of an assessment, say $2,000, or up to an X percentage of their property's value, again, 0.25% perhaps, and the city would pay the rest. So all taxpayers would pay into this type of program. We also could simply stop levying special assessments on capital improvements or for capital improvements, as other cities in Minnesota are starting to do. And lastly, none of the renter assistance, none of the options explored help renters or, provide assistance when rent is raised due to special assessment. Given the broad discretion landlords have for setting the rent, however, it's unlikely that there are any options at the city level for addressing that issue. Again, exploring any of these additional considerations would require additional research and should include the city attorney's office, Public Works, and Finance and Property Services. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to respond to any questions that you may have about the presentation or the report. And I also know that a number of people from different city departments, including Public Works that I worked with on this report with, are here to answer anything in detail that I am unable to do.
Thank you so much, Ms. Juk, for the presentation. I think this is pretty detailed and something that we're going to be able to refer to for a long time across different contexts, because we do get a lot of questions, especially in construction season, about how all of this is being paid for and what options our residents have to make it work for them. So I just have one question to start. It was one of your first slides was that assessments usually cover about 25% of standard project costs. Can you remind, did I say that correctly?
Of reconstruction project costs. So they're like resurfacing is different and other categories have different.
I see. So that's just for reconstructions.
Yes, as far as no one's standing up to correct me.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, Director Sexton, if the Hennepin Avenue South reconstruction, for example, was it financed 25% by special assessment and 75% by, federal funds, state funds, et cetera?
Yeah, Chair Cashman, I would welcome Jeff Handelin up, and I think every project is a little different, even though there is a standard rule of thumb that's applied, but Jeff can maybe speak more specifically to Hennepin.
Sure, that'd be helpful, thanks.
Thank you, Director Sexton, Chair Cashman. Yes. So each year I calculate and recommend to City Council uniform assessment rates. Those uniform assessment rates are based on funding 25% of the standard reconstruction project. But those uniform rates are multiplied by the influence area, and so our methodology is consistent across the whole city, regardless of traffic volumes, soil conditions, or other individual project costs. Therefore, you will not necessarily see that you cannot necessarily take one given project and you will find that it does not necessarily fund 25% of that individual project.
Okay, so from your research, Ms. Juk, is it a city policy that determines what types of projects are funded at what percentage level by special assessment?
Could I just add one clip?
Yes, welcome.
Paul Keating, I'm the supervisor for the Special Assessments Office. Chair Cashman, the 25% calculation for the project there's two historical projects that are used to calculate the uniform assessment rate. Those projects are 100% non-residential and 100% residential, and that's where those numbers come from. They're using current dollar estimates applied to historically uniform projects to calculate the uniform assessment rate.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. I guess I was just wondering if it's like a city policy for these, or is there a state policy that's also influencing?
I can't speak to that exactly. I can say how the number I got in my report was in conversation, and I was trying to provide an example exemplifying that special assessments are not covering 100% costs for these projects. How that originally came to be is I didn't find any policies at a city or state level that impacted that, but I wasn't specifically looking for that. So again, if someone else can speak to that better.
Chair Cashman, I think the answer to your question lies in past city policy making, but would you please repeat the question once more to see if I'm...
Is there a city policy that determines the rates that are set, the percentages that are covered by assessment for different types of projects?
Thank you, Chair Cashman, for repeating that. So prior to the 1960s, the city of Minneapolis assessed 100% of project costs to the adjacent property owners. Then in about 1980, the city council set policy that charged 25% of the individual project costs. So it was actually at that time then 25% of each individual project cost. And then in, let's see, 1960, 1980, there's a chance I might be getting some of these dates wrong, but the steps are correct. Somewhere between 1980 and 1998, city council set policy for the uniform assessment rate and influence area, which we use today. So those are
That's really interesting.
Based on city policy primarily.
All right. Thank you. Next, I'll recognize Vice Chair Koski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for this presentation. I know Councilmember Chavez and I brought this forward, and it's been a topic of discussion this year heavily. I just had a quick question. I think it's on the last slide here. Number 3, stop utilizing special assessments. Can you talk a little bit more about, you said the city, what other cities have chosen to do this, and what's have you seen be the impact of that?
I wasn't able to research too much of the impact. It's still a relatively recent. I'm trying to find it in my report so I have the details correct. I know that Duluth St. Cloud. I should stop speaking until I find the details.
It's all right, no problem. You take your time, please.
That was on my last page here. Oh, yeah. So yes, Duluth, Rochester, Edina, and Northfield have changed the way they do road projects. I didn't go into too much detail because that's sort of just an opt-out of what we're doing. But so Duluth uses proceeds from a sales tax that voters approved in 2017. Edina is just now transitioning from funding road projects with assessments to funding approved with property taxes. That's going to take 20 years to transition fully, though. It's not going to be an instantaneous change. I don't have the details on Rochester or Edina, on Rochester or Northfield. I also know that places like Denver, Colorado now collects a flat annual fee for most property owners for sidewalk projects across the city. So essentially everyone is paying roughly $150 a year, and that it covers all sidewalk projects rather than any sort of unexpected special assessment once every 20 years or whatever the average is.
Gotcha.
So those are some examples.
Okay, that's helpful. Yeah, I mean, I'm anxious to start exploring some of these different options with our public works staff, and obviously a lot of them still have a compounding effect on residents, and they're still paying something potentially. It just is a matter of, how or where. So I think it's just, to your point, like right now, sometimes it's, it comes unexpectedly versus maybe knowing a little bit at a time or it being distributed differently. So anyways, I'm anxious to just kind of explore some of those options and see what might be best as we're continuing to especially look into this budget season and think about the years ahead too. So thank you so much again for the presentation.
Councilmember Chavez.
Thanks, Chair Cashman, and thank you for the presentation. Really robust. There's a lot of information here. I guess my question for you, and maybe it's not even just PAR, but Public Works is, we had a couple meetings with Public Works before we ended up going to PAR, just for context. And the meeting with Public Works, we thought maybe the best place for this to be with the policy and research team, do some landscape analysis, figure out what other cities are doing across the country, in the city, and then eventually figure out if there's a route that we want to take towards in the city. So I think just for my colleagues to hear, and also the public, and for our policy and research team, trying to figure out where do we go from here. I think there's probably an opportunity to work with our policy and research team and then the Public Works Department, have further conversations about what this report means and figure out if there's some tools here tailored to Minneapolis that could be effective, I guess I would say. So I don't really have a question for you. I just want to say thank you for the presentation and the hard work. It was a quick turnaround, actually, to bring this back here. And I guess my comment is for the Public Works Department, if we can all follow up after this and then figure out what route we want to go towards and the conversations that still need to happen from this report. But really well done and really appreciative, and thank you.
Thank you. All right, great. So seeing no further questions, I will ask the clerk to file this report. Thank you so much, Ms. Zook. I believe we have no further business to come before the committee today, so without objection, we stand adjourned. Thank you.